Okay, welcome back. And yeah, back to it. So today I'm gonna be taking or in the coming episodes, I'm gonna be taking I won't say a break because you can't really especially if you're reading the Bible, you can't really step away from esotericism because God is in the hidden, you know. Like the Bible even says in the verse, He stays in the hidden places. So yeah, and then but I'm not gonna be doing too much on just random talking. I'm actually gonna start how will I put it? I'm gonna start just tying the Bible more into what I'm talking about. So in a sort of sense, it stays grounded, you know, on the Word of God. So yeah, and then before I go off my tangent, um, I just wanted to maybe talk give a brief, or how will I put it, a brief expose on everything, because I've been watching a bunch of videos and then it's like it's like a movie, you know, and then you have to think it's a movie. It's or no, less like a movie, more like an anthology series where it's just a bunch of different stories, but in some cases it's just one director, you know, of the entire series or movie. And then I've been watching a bunch of videos about a bunch of stuff uh what's it called, some stuff from John Todd, like writings about Crowley, UFO stuff, and then in the midst of that chaos, the then you find the people who are truly who have truly lost the plot. You used to see I've been reading up on Satanists, atheists, some people who are I'll say perhaps a bit misguided, Luciferians, and then they might agree, they might not agree. It's not up to me. Freemasons. So I'm reading a bunch of all of it, and then in my head it's chaos, and I'm trying to because I spoke on this in the previous episode. The mind, it searches for truth. It's wired in our head. This search for knowledge. So it's applying to me myself. I'm taking all this information. I'm my brain is racking, trying to make sense of it. And then you just realize it's an anthology series. It's a movie. Then you you go back to Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. Like, in the beginning, God said, scene, action, you know? And then I'll, I'll just put that out there. Like, God as the director, executive producer, the the Jewish company supplying the funds for the creation, he's supplying the literal air we breathe, the mud we're made from, the trees we used to build everything, the stone, he's like funding the production of the movie while directing, while like producing. And then you're like, oh, where do we fall into? Like, it should be obvious. We love to tell stories about ourselves, about other people. We're the actors. I'll presume so. We're the actors. And then it's like, if you don't believe what I'm saying, then I'll throw you a bone. Remember when, like, the light bearer, not the light bearer, but the light bearer says, like, eat the apple and you become like God, In what manner is what Eve should have asked, In what manner? So we have like, obviously we have like like in present day time, we have a free will to do anything and everything, But back then, we had like instruction to just, we were basically given like instructions, like directed, tend to the garden, or name the animals, care for it, eat so and so, but do not eat this, That's like direction from the producer, the executive producer, God. And then he says, eat this fruit and you become like God. It's just like if you catch it, then you understand what I'm saying. You will have the power to direct your own life. Free will. That's like the gift, quote unquote, from Lucifer. To like be able to have this director role in our own lives. And then, I mean, obviously it backfires because like we don't see it from his angle, so like we direct it into places we don't even understand, and then it's a whole bunch of, but you have like us, I'll say, like when Adam was like king of the beasts, and then us ourselves, we were still, how will I put it, like we were sort of beasts, not in the sense that like, okay, we were like evolved from monkeys, like not that kind of stupid jargon. I mean more of a beast in the sense that like, look at the beasts of the earth, of the fields, the beasts of the fields and the birds of the air. They kind of move and act like they're in the Garden of Eden. Like they just instructed to fly, to hunt, to avoid being hunted. Like they don't like a bird doesn't like go build a nest and make it bigger than everyone's own, like his neighbor's nest, and then he's like, oh, I'm better than my neighbor. He builds his nest to no for the purpose of proving anything. It's more like a causation of function. He builds it to like house its eggs. So that's why tigers don't build nests, because they don't have like eggs to burrow or nest. And then that's why foxes burrow. And then it's all like it's like God is still directing their movie, and he's kind of hands off from ours, if you understand what I mean. So yeah, we've evolved from like beasts, but like we've become like God. We can direct it. Like there's this verse that Jesus says, is it's like the sparrows, what's it called? Let me see if I can find it. Exactly. You see? Yeah. I knew I was in like, because sometimes I'm just like, what am I saying? But like at the same time, I know like it's esoteric teaching. You know, it's coming from ET. But yeah, what I'm saying is, look here at this verse, Matthew 6:26. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not worth much more than they? So it's like these guys, the birds, beasts of the air, God is instructing them on how to survive. Like it's like when he's like, Adam, do this, do this, do this. Like tend to the garden, do this, eat this fruit. That's the state of consciousness the birds are still at. Lower, yes, but it's more, how will I say it? Ironically, there's more freedom in it, because you're being directed by the God of perfection. So that's why some people envy animals. They're like, oh, I wish I was a bird, or I wish I was a dolphin, or you're envious of God's direction and like that consciousness which they possess, because they are alive. So they possess that conscious knowledge that that voice I'm hearing from God is gonna guide me and instruct me on what to do, so that I can feed, I can recreate, I can survive, you know. And they will, like, if not for like human intervention and like all that rubbish. But that's what I'm saying. So when it's like, oh, you be like God, it's not saying like, oh, you're gonna it's not saying you're gonna like be able to create heaven and earth. Like, no. It's like you're gonna rise from that sort of consciousness. You're gonna be able to like, when the voice tells you, Adam, do this, you're gonna be able to like refuse that voice. Like you you can separate from the director, you know. It's like you sign a contract, and then some companies like how do I put it? So let's say you sign a contract for a movie, and then you're an actor, and then in the contract they're like, what's it called? In the contract they're like, oh, this character has this wardrobe and this and that and that. But let's say like the apple is like an offering of money that you give to someone, and then they're like, okay, I can control this and this and this, and I can say this, and like it's like it's like by eating the apple we just purchased how will I put it, the ability to alter the script, because no one knows like what life in the garden would have been like obviously after some point we'll have started like recreating like animals do, you know. So no one knows what life in the garden would have been like, because we'd even get past one generation. But maybe that's how it's meant to be, I don't know. But why I'm talking about this is like, so some people are like, oh, there is no God, there is no uh this, there's like this this is God, or we are God, or like all that chaos I'm getting from like the movie I'm watching through videos, and like the one being created in my head is like excuse me, it's just like how do I put it, it's like different actors who like, how do I explain it, okay, I'll take them one by one, you know, maybe that'll help. So I'll say like a Christian, those are people who have like returned, or who are trying to return that direction back to God, like take control, Lord, and guide my footsteps, you know. Something like David used to say, like, order my paths and make them straight, something like that. That's a Christian, like returning it back and saying, like, okay, you do the directing, let me see where we go. An atheist is like an actor that's like, uh, I was born on a movie set, and I don't really care about my contract. I'm just gonna act, you know? Like, in that, like, blind ignorance, that is the role itself, you know? What's gonna come and, like, guide your steps? Since you're rejecting God, what's gonna come and guide your steps is something else, you know? What it is, it's up to you to choose. Or in some cases, you don't even get that choice. And then I'll say, like, people who worship idols, it's like or other gods, or just bunch them together, or other gods, quote unquote. Even the angels, I'll count them as like other gods. Those are people that like just like everything's a role in itself, you know. It's like through your actions, your choices, because we all have free will. You're choosing a role where you're an actor, like you're at war with the director of your movie, you know. So you go to a different director for tips on how to act in the movie. And it may like it may make sense, it may line up, but ultimately that's not the grand director of the movie, you know. So I'll put it something like this. Let's say you're in a movie and it's your Keanu Reeves, John Wick, or Chadwick, or your the director's giving you this role, your Keanu Reeves, and then he's telling you how to act. Okay, for this scene, do this and do that and do this. But you refuse that knowledge, or you refuse that direction, that instruction, and then you turn to something else. Let's say you're like, oh yeah, like I don't really agree with your direction, but to act in this Keanu Reeves part, I'm gonna go to this martial arts instructor to learn how to do this differently, or learn how to do that different. You get me? And this martial arts instructor directs your acting, forms like molds your role, sort of. And then that's what the confusion exists. You start to call the martial arts director God, like maybe an instrument of God, maybe an angel of God, but all in all, not God, you know? So, like, what I'm really getting out with like this script parable is like the believer should always take a courage in the fact that, like, regardless of how many martial arts directors are running around altering scripts, how many people are running around like rejecting roles and manipulating their lives, others' lives. Like, director still sits on the throne in heaven, and like at the end of the day, like there's a grander movie. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like an anthology. There's like a grander movie at play, and then depending on how you're living your life, he may not impose on your free will and be like, oh, you want to live like this? No, you can't. Like, well, what? He let a third of heaven fall. He let his only two creations that were like him, with the ability to be like him, you know, in his image, and with the ability to attain his level of consciousness. Not to the fullest degree, but to an extent. He let those two creations, he let them ruin the paradise. He let a third of heaven ruin their paradise. So, so we should understand that we worship a God who is so, how will I put it? We worship a God who, in an essence, lets free will roam, but kind of orchestrates a reality to, how will I put it? Orchestrates a reality to fit in where we choose to like deviate from his direction, you know? So, like, he has Adam and Eve in the garden, and he lets them choose to, like obviously they can't be in the garden because they no longer have that, like, purity of mindset. They now know good and evil, so they leave the garden. But he lets that story tie in with the future, and like, how, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like God is the only one that could explain it perfectly. Like, he's using every role to play in his movie. You just have to accept that, like, you're just an actor in the movie, you know? Like, people want to be God and run around, and like, you may not necessarily be being like guided by the instruction of God, but you are certainly, like, God is certainly aware of you, and he's using you for a purpose. Like how he uses the liar to draw man out of the garden so that man can be at a higher level. Sure, he's a liar and all that, but he uses him for a role, but he doesn't necessarily impose on him following his instruction. So the devil can still be a liar, but he uses him like the angel of death. Like, death negates life, which is God, you know, the breath of life, the breath of creation. Death negates that, but he fits it into the picture. Okay, at the end of a man's life, he dies, and then after the death, he can uh, transform in death into a being that can come to the next stage for judgment, if you ask me, based on my beliefs, based on others' beliefs. I don't know what lies you've been told, but that's how I'm just that's what I'm trying to say. So, like, I think that's what, like, people like the disciples, Jesus, that's why they weren't really worried, because, like, they understood this, like, they understood it perfectly. I can choose how I want to live, free will, but ultimately purpose is God given, you know. That's a saying. I don't remember from where, but purpose, like, meaning of life, it's God given. Like, regardless of how you want to choose to live it. Like, you want to be Crowley, then you're going to be used as, like, a representation of, like, what someone operating at that, like, beast level of consciousness, like, how that moves, you know. And then, not to go too deep, but like how people who receive that mark of the beast, how they operate, you know. It's all like, you can live however you want. You can even live like you can live like a dog, but ultimately your purpose in this life will be dictated by God. Because just as you have free will to live your life, God has free will to live his reality. And in his reality, he gets the final say. He might not get it in your life if you know, a Christian who abdicates it back to God. But ultimately, all in all, he gets the final say, because you have, like, great men who have lived, and then they're like, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and at the end of the day, like, think of the Tower of Babel. It's like, Nimrod, like, he must have thought himself such a large figure, But fast forward like 5,000 years later, he's being used as an example of stupidity. Like, God is using him as an example in current era to show, like, okay, this is your final level. Like, this is who you become at the end of your at the end of the highest degree, when you reach the highest degree, or when you ascend to the highest place, or when you're masterfully enlightened, or whatever. This is who it is. Nimrod, someone who thinks he can begin to make works that can tamper with the fabrics of heaven. Like stupidity, you know. But at no point was it going to be like, Nimrod, you can't do this. Like, you can do this. Free will. Like, our God has never really preached it, but it lies more in the fact, like, he's to like, he's never really preached it, or like, how I say, but he's kind of just let it. I don't think he preached to his angels like, you can do whatever you want in heaven. No, he's just like, this is my kingdom. Like, probably this is heaven. And the third that chose to fail, he just kind of let that happen. Like, okay, this is gonna be used in the story for a purpose. The third have to fall to deceive mankind, or in the future, to deceive mankind in the future. So it has to happen at this moment, at the moment it happened. So something like that, when you start to like get the understanding, then everything falls into line. Like, that's why these guys exist, like Crowley, to establish the mark of the beast, or uh even the synagogue of Satan, to like how can revelations be true if we didn't get a synagogue of Satan? Then that means God lied in his book. Like, no, for a purpose they've been let to exist. It's just like, do we keep rejecting our director, or will we just let him keep using us for whatever purpose, or will we unite back with him and begin to build towards something greater? You know, that's just a question on the side, but yeah, that's what I just want to say. So, like, always keep your head up, your faith up, because, like, end of the day, regardless of what anyone is doing, when you die, you cannot control how your story is told anymore. Like, like Nimrod, like, he can't come kill me now. Back in the day, let's say Herod. Back in the day, if I was speaking on Herod, the truth of his nature, this is a wicked, evil man. He would probably come for me. Maybe kill me, or maybe do something terrible. But in the future, now, his purpose is dictated by God, bro. The truth. God is truth. The truth to dictate your purpose when you're gone. People don't realize these things, but I'm not really gonna get too deep into the esoteric stuff, like, because I find myself mumbling, and then it makes perfect sense to me, but I don't know. I'm like also saying it from both sides. I'm like someone who doesn't understand these things. Do they say it as mumbling, or is it opening the eyes a bit. So what I want to do is I want to try, like everyone is doing like a, what's it called, like everyone is doing like a freaking uh December marathon, whatever. So like I'm gonna do my own version. I'm kind of late. It's already halfway into the month. Like I should have had this idea earlier, but it all happens at the time it's meant to happen. I'm gonna read the entire 31 chapters of Proverbs, and maybe in there, like I can get some insight or have a spirit that backs up some of my thoughts or even opens me up into wisdom I have no yet understood or heard of. And then yeah, so I'm just gonna be doing a Proverbs. I'm starting at chapters 1. Excuse me. And then yeah, like episode 7 I talked to Solomon, and then yeah. So yeah, it's like a full circle. Like episode 7 I'm like, why are you doing these things? Like what's the point? And now this is what episode 10. I'm like, let's see what this guy had to say. So yeah, full circle. Um, yeah. So I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be reading from Proverbs, and then, it, do you know the absolute funny thing is like you read something like Proverbs, and you see someone like uh, what's his name, Solomon, absolutely just like give up a bunch of wisdom, and then you have people that still don't believe in the Bible. Like at the end of the day, I feel like, like I'm saying purpose and all those things. At the end of the day, like people think what's it called? The final the final battle is gonna be like like what the checkerboard gang say, like, oh, after there'll be like maybe a war, and then some someone to come and then spread the enlightenment and like push, like all those is fantasy. Like the end will come when Christians and the true practitioners of Judaism, I won't say Jewish because like like Catholicism, you guys have also been infiltrated. Like Judaism has also been infiltrated, synagogue of Satan and all that. So I feel like the end, like what I was talking about, like when we meet back with God and truly begin to do like wondrous things, like the days of old, you know, like Noah flooding the earth, Moses splitting the sea, is when we like both come and sit down. It's none of these side characters, like all these other false gods. It's both of us. Like all this running to where? When we sit down and discuss, like, why why don't Christians recognize the Judaic roots of, or the like, or how will I put it, the Israelite roots of the religion? And why don't Jews, regardless of race, why don't Jews recognize Jesus, their God, who touched down? You see God as like one, the oneness, the spirit of one. Can the spirit be embodied by a man for his entire life? Or can't a man be manifested literally just by speaking? Like the prophets, they spoke it. And the prophets of old were powerful. Just by speaking, the prophets spoke it. The wise men, I read something about like Zoroastrianism, Australianism, and then those wise men, they too, the stars told them, like, God is born, all these things. Like, why can't you accept the that spirit who can literally create? Like, I'm drinking from a metal can. That's the reality we live in, bro. Like, someone powered this. Like, someone funded this movie. Like, now I'm drinking tomato juice from a can. Like, if this is possible, like, what is, like, how hard is it to come in the flesh of man and do nothing but die on a cross and drop some hard, like, very insightful, life-changing truths, and then leave, like, tampered on no one's free will? Remember, that's our God. That's our God. Like, does he really tamper with free will, bro? It's like, if your will is to kill me, then do it. This annoying ass Satanist stole that. Like, Crowley is just a fanboy, bro. Like, the beast is just a perversion of the truth. Our God is the one that says, do what you will, bro. But he doesn't need to say it. He just says, this is what I want you to do. And then says nothing else. Like Moses at the burning bush. It's like, Moses, take off your sandals. You're in holy ground. He doesn't say, Moses, why haven't you not taken off your sandals? Like, he just lets Moses do what he wants. He lets him do as he will. I don't want to confuse you or even give you guys any credit, but I'm just trying to help you understand. Like, you're being used, like, you're trying to go off script, and then you're being used in the script to play a purpose. But eventually, all in all, like, it will be up to the Jews, the Christians, at least the ones not infiltrated yet or perverted, and the Jews not perverted as well, wherever they may be, probably not in Israel, but wherever they may be. When we sit down and we're like, what are we doing here? Okay, then things start to move forward. But till then, we just have a bunch of people taking the mark of the beast and thinking they're God. So I'm gonna start reading from Proverbs. I don't know how long I've been talking. Okay, 44 minutes. Alright. So yeah, I'm I'm gonna, what's it called? I'll count this as an intro video. It's kind of a good intro. A bit of wisdom, and then I'm gonna go into some more advanced wisdom. Because, yeah, Solomon did some terrible things, but like, if you will it, you can step out of the darkness before you die. If you're this stupid imbeciles and you will it, you're gonna go to hell. Yeah, you're gonna go to eternal darkness if that's what you want. Like, you think you're special and someone is gonna come and stop you. That's what I have to realize. Like, before you kill a man, some people think like, oh, something is gonna come stop him. Like, dude, do you have free will then? Like, where's your free will then? If someone was to come and stop you, like, those people who did, yeah, you will go into darkness. But that's aside. I'll get into all those later. Right now, I just want to read from Proverbs, and I like Proverbs because it's hard-hitting knowledge. Like, I'll explain in a couple minutes. It's hard-hitting knowledge, but it's soft. It's like, it's not like, how do I put it? Like, it's hard-hitting. It's very judgmental, but at the same time, it's like a caress, you know. It's like the guiding hand of a father, you know, a loving father, you know. So yeah, this will be episode 10, and then in episode 11, I start reading from Proverbs, and I'll read where I feel pushed to explain or touched. I will. If I need to add a little rant in there, I will. I will. Okay. And then what's it called? Yeah. And it's for no like intentionally too. I'm reading from this website I found to show you that, like, it's not about original language and like leave the semantics aside. Unity under one God. That's the real new world order, bro. Not like, not none of these things like that everyone's trying to push. All of that is just, it's distractions. Years later, your little escapade is going to be used as a lesson to those who choose the truth, you know. But if you choose the truth, then 3,000 years later, I'm reading what you said, and I'm like, I'm humbled by what you said, you know. Like, Solomon here, as I read, you understand what I'm talking about. He's aligned with truth, and God has given his life the purpose of Solomon. Proverbs, words of God, words from God, not like Nimrod, buffoon, who brought about the division of the world, you know, in a sort of sense. But yeah, I'm not gonna linger on too much. I'm gonna end it here, and then I start from Proverbs 1 in the next episode 11. Alright. Alright. Take it easy, always.